One of the biggest hurdles for a lot of people when it comes to prepping is how much it costs. They think that it's way too expensive to even bother trying. Folks will watch gear reviews on YouTube or old episodes of Doomsday Preppers and think that there's no way that they could ever get to that point. But the bottom line is that you don't have to blow a ton of money on fancy equipment to prepare for the vast majority of what you could actually face. So today, I'm going to go after some of the main big ticket items that a lot of folks think of when it comes to emergency preparedness. Now, to be fair, the purpose of this video isn't to bash these things or say that you shouldn't get them. I've actually talked about some of them on the channel before and they can be useful. Instead, the purpose of this video is to give y'all realistic alternatives that should be attainable for most folks, even if they're on a budget. First up is one of my favorite things to pick on, and that's big honking pallets of generic freeze-dried food. This is one of the biggest traps that new preppers run into since they want to get a decent supply of emergency food all at one time, but there are much better ways to store food in bulk. Storing dry staples and canned goods will give you more control over your diet, more variety, and will help your body get the nutrients that it needs. They're also a lot cheaper than any kind of freeze-dried food out there. For my purposes, freeze-dried meals do two things. First, they're an occasional luxury. Some varieties, like Mountain House's Chili Mac and their lasagna, are pretty good. And then second, they work really well for bug-out bags. They're lightweight and are easy to prepare. Many times you just pour the water straight into the pouch and eat it from there. But for me, how expensive they are disqualifies them from being my primary go-to food source. And the generic ones have other problems too. Most of the freeze-dried food packages that you see on ads peppered across the internet aren't nearly as good as Mountain House or some of the others. They may not taste very good or could have a weird texture that's kind of off-putting. Then many of them are just empty calories that are missing a lot of the nutrients that your body needs. So my recommendation is to buy individual pouches or some sort of sampler of anything that you're considering buying in bulk. That way you'll have a better idea of if it's something that you and your family would actually eat. Then after that, we have what many would consider to be the holy grail of preps, and that's bunkers. To be honest, I'd love to have one, but like many of y'all, there's absolutely no way that it could work out financially, at least as of right now. And this is one that a lot of people get hung up on. They think that since they can't afford a bunker, then what's the point? But that's just not true. The fact is that a bunker isn't necessary to survive the vast majority of situations we could face. Things like floods, tornadoes, and wildfires are significantly more likely. And even if you are worried about some sort of nuclear event, a well-equipped basement with a few modifications would be fairly effective, at least at reducing exposure to fallout. Of course, a bunker would be about the only thing that would save you if you were near an explosion's epicenter, but the chances of that happening are still pretty low, even with all the nonsense going on in the world right now, although they do seem to be going up. So instead of obsessing over a bunker, most people will be way better off hardening their homes from outside threats and keeping their plans flexible so that they need to get out, they can do so before everybody else. I actually just posted a video on my other channel about how to harden and defend your home, so be sure to check that out if it's something that you're interested in. Then after that, we have Aladdin lamps, and people want these since they're some of the brightest oil lamps that you can get. Like other oil lamps, these produce light using a wick that absorbs oil into it, which you then ignite using a lighter or a match. The difference is that these have a mantle on top of the wick that incandesces, similar to propane or white gas lanterns, which makes them a lot brighter. Aladdin lamps don't produce quite as much light as propane or white gas lanterns, but to be fair, those usually aren't rated for indoor use. I personally like my Aladdin lamp. I think that it's cool and it makes a pretty decoration, but practically speaking, there are other lighting methods that give you a lot more bang for your buck. Right now, this exact lamp costs over $200, which is a lot. LED lights, on the other hand, are obscenely cheap, produce a ton of light, and are much safer than any fuel-based lighting method. The chances of them starting a fire are very low, and since they burn cool, you don't have to worry about someone getting burned if they touch it. And you don't even have to get a fancy one. This one right here was part of a multi-pack that came out to around $9 per lantern, and you can get rechargeable variants of those same ones too. Then another issue with Aladdin lamps is that they're expensive to maintain. New mantles cost around 25 bucks each, and they're incredibly fragile. Mine's starting to tear at the top, and I barely used it. I think most of the damage has come from me moving it from the shelf where I film my videos to a dresser in my bedroom. LED lanterns are just a lot more durable. Next up, we have massive generators, and those can be either gas or solar. During my time on YouTube, I've had the chance to test a ton of backup backup power equipment. I've done everything from traditional portable gas generators all the way to whole home solar options. And what I've found during that time is that smaller, less expensive equipment can be preferable to the big behemoths, and there's a few different reasons for that. First, the Gigantors are expensive. Plain Jane 10,000 watt gas generators start at around $1,000, and solar generators that can run most of your house are around $3,000 or $4,000. Then keeping them running will be expensive too. Large fuel-based generators will drink a lot more gas than mid-size models, and you'll need a very large panel array to keep whole home solar options going. And when you spend that much money on something, it tends to be all that you have. If it goes offline, you're going to be out of luck until you can get it fixed, if it's even possible to do so. Then larger generators aren't portable. You'll probably need at least 2 people to load them into the back of a vehicle, and once you get them in there, they're going to take up a ton of space. I actually find that I use smaller power options a lot more during normal times, and they'd be more versatile during a blackout, especially if it lasts more than a couple of days. A 2 kilowatt hour solar power station like the EcoFlow Delta 3 Max or Jackery 2000 Plus would run most of what you realistically need to keep going. You could use a small inverter generator to fast charge them, and they're a lot easier to move around your house or load up if you needed to bug out. You can also get 2 or 3 of those for around the same price as a whole home power system and then leapfrog them. Use one to power your devices while the other's charging, and then just swap them out as needed. It's really useful if you're using them to power something like a box freezer and are relying on panels to keep them charged up. Next up, we have titanium cookware, which is sort of the Cadillac of camping pots. People like it since it's durable and lighter than traditional stainless steel cookware, but if you're on a budget, you may want to just stick to the old-fashioned stuff. Now, of course, if you do like to do things like backcountry hiking and camping, then springing for more expensive titanium cookware could make a lot of sense because you're actually going to use it. But if you're part of the vast majority of preppers who plan to bug in and only bug out as an absolute last resort, you're not going to get a lot of use out of it. It'll just be a very expensive piece of gear sitting in your bug out bag for years at a time. Stainless steel cookware is plenty good for things like bug out bags, and cast iron's a great choice for use at home. Both are durable enough to last a lifetime and are non-toxic. Then the next item I'm going to desecrate is subscription boxes, and to be fair, not all of them are awful. Some do a pretty good job of curating good gear, and you might get some useful stuff that you've never seen before, but the bottom line is that the economy stinks right now, and it makes sense to be intentional with what you buy. While you may get a good deal on the overall contents of the box, there's also a good chance that at least some of it is going to be stuff that you already have, or something that you don't really have a use for. I personally would rather spend $35 on gear that I have a specific use for than I would $35 on a mix of some gear that's kind of cool and other gear that's just meh. So instead, take a look at what you have, see where you have gaps in like your food, water, fuel, and other supplies, and then plug them. Then take a look at your survival equipment and see if there are any important tasks that you may need to do that you can't do with what you have. Next up, we have one that I actually did spring for, and that's an off-road vehicle. If you've watched me for a while, you know that I'm not really someone who promotes bugging out to the wilderness, but I do see the value in having a vehicle that can go places that others can't. And of course, there's the fun factor too. I've always thought that Jeeps were cool. I wanted one when I started driving back in the mid-2000s, but I think it probably started way before that. Jurassic Park was one of my favorite movies growing up, and if you've seen it, you know that they have some really cool Jeeps. And when the Gladiator came out a few years back, my problem with choosing between a Jeep and a truck with a bed that I could use to haul stuff was solved. I wanted a vehicle that could go pretty much anywhere, and my current truck can do that, but if I'm being realistic, having something like this is more of a luxury than it is a necessity. Even if you do have to bug out, most of those trips will happen on actual roads, and if you do a good job of planning your bug out and you get out before everybody else does, then the chances of having to go off-roading are pretty low. Then these can get incredibly expensive. I'm not going to tell you what I'm paying monthly for mine because I'm not proud of it, but there are a lot of times where I think I would have been a lot better off getting something a little more boring and putting the money I saved towards other things. Now, if you're into off-roading and would use it regularly, then, rock on. But if you don't spend a lot of time outdoors, then a decked-out four-wheel drive may not be the best investment. Now, for this next one, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to tick some people off, and I feel a little bad for putting it here, but it's the Kelly Kettle. And like so many others in this list, I'm not talking about it because it doesn't work or it's poorly made. It's just limited on what it can do compared to other off-grid cooking options. If you don't know what a Kelly kettle is, it's a stainless steel water container with a chimney that runs through the middle of it from top to bottom. You fill it with water and then set it on top of a fire base. The fire will heat the water inside, and this happens very quickly because of how the kettle is designed. Since the water is held between the outside of the kettle and the chimney wall, a significant portion of the kettle's surface area is exposed to the heat. If you compare that to a traditional pot where only the bottom is exposed to direct heat, it makes sense that this works a lot faster. Then it's also nice since it can use any natural material like sticks, pine cones, dry grass, and even cow patties. Unfortunately, though, boiling water is about the only thing that this does exceptionally well. When I got mine, I bought the full kit. It came with stainless steel plates, mugs, and even a grill grate and pot stand. So while it can cook a lot of things, using it to cook for more than one or two people would be a little difficult. First, you're limited by the size of the fire base, which isn't that big. And then second, since the fire base is so small, you're going to be adding new material to it constantly. It doesn't have enough room to hold larger sticks, which could burn longer. And it's also pretty short, so you'll have to be on the ground a lot while you're using it. I think that a rocket stove like this one will be a much better choice for most folks, especially if you plan on using it at home or a predefined bug-out location. It's big enough to handle things like full-size skillets, Dutch ovens, and even stock pots. The burn chamber is also bigger, which means that you'll be able to have more fuel in it at one time, and you can also use larger sticks, which burn longer. Then, since it's taller, you won't have to spend as much time on the ground while you're cooking, but if you're worried about portability, then the Kelly kettle does have an edge there since it's smaller and stores away in a carrying bag. Now, if you want to see some preps and survival gear that are actually worth buying, then click here, or if you want to see stockpile items that preppers never think of, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.